Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Boxnaught podcast, where we talk about anything TTRPG and/or wargaming, and/or whatever I'm feeling like. Before you, in the video format, we are painting our pile of shame, or our shelf of shame that we're slowly depleting. But in audio version, we're just hanging out, talking about whatever we're feeling like, and hopefully helping you guys defeat your pile of shame. Today is a really big day. We are having our first guest on the podcast and someone who wanted to interview me. His name is RJ and he's from the Oldex channel. He's been following me for a minute now, and I've actually been following his channel for a minute now. And so it was, I guess, just about time that we meet up and we do a video. And hopefully there will be future projects with this awesome person. We go into talking about a lot of things, about how we both got into the tabletop game Warhammer and heavy metal and all sorts of stuff. But I'm going to show you guys the interview. It is 90% unedited, so there's just all sorts of stuff in there. And hopefully you guys enjoy. It's our longest podcast thus far. And yeah, here it is. I lied. Before we move on, I want to let you guys know that I tried a new program to record over Discord, and I messed up his audio a little bit. He is quite significantly lower volume than I am, and therefore the levels are a little off. So if you're watching the video format, I would suggest possibly putting on captions, because then you can probably see what he is saying. But if you're listening, I'm going to probably be the loudest one in this audio, and I apologize. So if you guys could just bear with me on this, because I didn't want to redo this. You can't really recapture the first moments of people learning about each other, and it's just what we got. So yeah, sorry about that.
Well, shall I commence the interview then?
Yeah, let me hear, you go ahead and say something real quick. Make sure you're not too quiet.
1, 2, testing, testing. 1, 2, 1, 2, testing.
Okay, and then, yeah, that should work. Okay, fingers crossed. Here we go.
Magic.
All right.
Right, it's running.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Do you want me to do an interview? I was just going to go into my usual interview mode. Do you want me to do an intro, or do you want to do an intro?
Yeah, I guess I should do an intro. Oh, Lord. I always mess these ones up, so we'll see. Oh, gosh. Maybe, you know what? I'll pre-record it. I'll pre-record it later,
Cool.
so I don't have to worry about it.
Excellent. No worries. Okay. And we're recording now.
Mm-hmm.
Magic. All right, then. I guess I'll get cracking. Hello. It's me, RJ Bailey, from the extremely tiny microscopic podcast / YouTube channel Oldex. And I'm a huge fan of Boxnaught, and I've been following him and watched every single video, some of them multiple times, to
Oh, my
see
gosh.
how certain things are done. So and what's happened is this is a parasocial relationship that's gone too far. I've tricked him into letting me onto his fine broadcasts. So here I am. Boxnaught was, I feel like I'm talking like I run the channel, so please
No,
forgive
you're
me,
good.
everyone.
You're good.
Boxnaught was looking for ideas for a future show. And I, wanting to kind of take my interactions with Boxnaught to the next level as a fan, and also wondering, I like to bring solutions, and that I might be a part of, because I feel it's a bit rough to just tell someone to do something without offering to help out with that thing that you've told them to do. So I thought, well, what can I do to offer? What skills can I offer? Because he's given me so much wonderful time and videos for me to paint my Warhammer while I'm watching. So I thought, well, I've interviewed a lot of people. I have a radio program. I've interviewed people like, Anthrax and Arch Enemy and stuff like that, and Sabaton. I can do a fair old interview. So I offered to do an interview for Boxnaught, and here I am. So thank you, Boxnaught. I really appreciate you giving a tiny little member of the community like me a chance on your much more successful channel.
No, I wouldn't call it that at all, man. But thank you for reaching out too. And it's You're way too kind. You're way too
Not at
kind.
all.
I was gonna
Not at
say
all.
the fact that like I would have taken an interview whether you had done this or not with other people or the fact that you've interviewed Arch Enemy, Sabaton, and Anthrax. Like I'm a huge fan of all three of those bands. Well, maybe not Anthrax, but like yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
It's fun. It is a thing to throw around and just be like, by the way, when I need some metal credentials, even though I'm wearing a sunflower Hawaiian shirt type thing, when I need some metal credentials, I can go. I have interviewed Alyssa White Gloves and Frankie Bello.
That's awesome.
And Chris Rowland from Sabaton, etc. So I will ask you where it all started with you. You seem to have a very deep relationship with the craft, with Warhammer. Warhammer 40,000 is what your channel really focuses on. What was your first experience with this glorious hobby?
You can't see my face, but my eyes went wide because I don't think it's that deep. You asked where when it started, kind of.
Yeah.
That's a good question. See, I think I guess so the actual look into Warhammer 40K was, I think, like a lot of people during the pandemic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I hadn't realized this was an option in the tabletop world until I ran into Miscast, who I mentioned a lot of in my videos. But I was just simply the algorithm caught on, and I saw one of his Kit Bash videos, and I was doing D&D at the time. And I was also trying to get my old art channel / Instagram page off, and I was just running into a rut of things, and I could not figure out what my next medium was going to be. And then I saw him doing these sculpts and building these monsters and things for his Nurgle diaries, and I was like, this is a thing. This is a thing people do. Like, and I didn't even know the game. Like, he said Nurgle. He kept saying Nurgle diaries. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like, that's like German to me. I didn't know. Yeah, and so I just kept following the dude without realizing it was a game for like maybe 5 or 6 months, and then I was like, oh, it's Warhammer, because about like, and that's why it's a little hard to kind of grasp when it first started. Like a year prior to COVID, I was listening to Necron lore videos without realizing there was a game to Necron lore.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I just thought it was like some universe. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like there's books and stuff. But
So what did you think it was part of? Did you think it was just like a novel series?
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Plus, Necrons are my first love, so
oh, okay.
it was Necrons.
Yeah. And I was just blown away with like the depth of lore. I was just like, how is this stuff here? And like, I don't know what happened. I like dropped it eventually, and then again a year later, the Nurgle Diaries came up, and it all kind of connected. And I saw the price tags of what GW was selling. I was like, ooh, we might not do that for a little bit. And then yeah. So.
Wow, that's amazing. Like, and also with Nurgle Diaries, it must be the case that he didn't mention what it was a part of, and I can absolutely, I've seen it all, you know, myself. I'm a huge Miscast fan myself, and I love his chaotic form of creativity.
Oh yeah.
But I can very easily see how he could have gone several videos on the Nurgle Diaries, and knowing, you know, his personality, how he comes across, and him just not mentioning, oh, this is an army for a tabletop war game called Warhammer. He's just like making this group of models. What did you think his end goal was then? If you didn't know it, did you know he was making like an army of monsters?
I knew he was making an army of monsters. I know he mentioned Mordheim a couple of times. Gosh, that was like what 2-3 years ago that I was watching him. I think that was when I connected the dots. Like it was kind of
Yeah.
all together. Like the first couple videos I hadn't realized, and then like a video or so later I was like, oh okay. And then I went into GW and whatnot. So it wasn't, it wasn't the whole time through, but it definitely
Yeah.
was for a moment or so. I was just thinking he was just making sculpts to make sculpts. Yeah.
And that really caught with you, did it? What was it specifically that spoke to you about it? That gave you that feeling of, oh, this is a thing that people do.
It was just like, I don't know. It was seeing this guy dedicate all this time and efforts into something that like was so niche, and I was like, people care about this underground niche thing. I don't know. It was surprising, and so like I don't know. When I was learning art and whatnot, it was always about like just these world famous artists that were just like I don't know.
Yeah.
In the mainstream, and people, it's like it felt like you could only survive as an artist being a part of a main appeal. And so to find that there's this underground of miniature gaming and an art side to it and like a game side to it, it was like, yeah, that's kind of how it hit me. Yeah.
Also, you're a heavy metal fan, judging by the t-shirts that you wear in your videos, your black nail polish that I've seen you rocking.
Yeah.
What you were saying just then also could be described as heavy metal.
Yeah.
This like underground, very niche thing that is not at all mainstream. Like that's why metal has been so cool. It's never been mainstream.
Yeah.
Like and like, much like tabletop wargaming, especially. And people get so passionate about it and so into it. And I can see how Nurgle, especially, is it's one kind of heavy metal aesthetic.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's a very gross, heavy, like maybe death.
Uh-oh. Hold
metal,
on.
Whereas
We're losing you. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, keep going.
Some power. Yeah. So what you would just could it be heavy metal, where it's like this very, very niche genre that people are absolutely dedicated to. It's never been mainstream, which is why it's so cool, much like tabletop wargaming has never been. And in the case of Nurgle in particular, that has a very heavy metal aesthetic, or at least one subgenre of heavy metal, which would be, like Cannibal Corpse album cover type stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like gore grind
Yeah.
type death metal kind of music. Whereas, on the other hand, you have High Elves, which is power metal. But I can definitely see that where Nurgle is absolutely kind of like a nasty death metal, crusty kind of aesthetic. Does the heavy metalness of it speak to you? Because there's a massive crossover between people who love heavy metal and people who love Warhammer 40,000. And me and my friend often say the universe of Warhammer 40,000 is like heavy metal if it was a fictional universe. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. No, totally. It was funny when I first entered the hobby game-wise. I ran into a friend through work, and then he introduced me to the other friends, and they were like, oh, do you listen to, this band? And I was like, oh, of course. And he's like, oh, I'm part of a band. I'm like, no shit. And I was like, lead vocalist? He's like, yeah. And so it was just kind of like this whole thing, because I dabbled in vocals at one point as well, and you can just kind of smell it in the room. I was like, these guys listen to the same stuff, and it's just fun. It's just fun.
That is so cool. What is that person you were speaking to still in a band?
Yeah, he's actually working on some stuff right now. He's kind of been in and out of projects just because of like personal issues and like you were saying earlier with work and just bills and stuff. I don't want to reveal too much, but yeah, he's finally getting a project up off the ground. He's finally getting some finances to do some work, so I'm excited to see him start rolling. And so
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, after when he's ready, then don't hesitate to send him my way so I can play
for
him
sure
on the radio.
That would be amazing. Yeah, that would be amazing.
So where did you first start then? Because you said when did you first pick up a model or whatever? Because you said you looked at the GW prices, and I absolutely can see how you would look at that and go, that is a lot of money for 5 dudes.
Yeah. Yeah. So during that same time during the pandemic, I had just moved out, being a big boy, and started my own budget and stuff. And then in the same year, we lost the apartment because they bumped the prices up. A buddy of mine had to move out, and me and my partner had to move back in with the in-laws, which is fine. And things were looking so rough during that pandemic time. It was like, maybe this is the safe bet to do for now. And so even though I offered several times to my in-laws, I was like, hey, I'll pay rent or I'll do whatever I need to do to help out. And they said, no, you just pay your student loans, your bills, and save up your cash to move out again. And so I had all this spending money, and I was like, well, now's a better time than ever to try this out. And I want to say maybe that was 2020, 2021-ish, maybe toward the end. But it was so needed. It was such a therapeutic thing. Because I went from, like, my own bedroom and my own space and a little office spot to suddenly back to one room that holds, like, a small queen size mattress with one other person. So I had, like, no room at all. And I felt cramped and anxious and just, like, yeah. So, like, having this tiny hobby that could fit in a corner, and I could just turn my lamp on at night and just escape from all this claustrophobia and what was going on with the world. It was so important. It was so good.
Yeah, it is an absolute therapy. It's been a therapy to me as well. Like I have depression, and like wargaming 40K has been and to an extent other war games like Stargrave have been an absolute lifesaver to me. Generally a lifesaver. So I can totally get that. And when you're in a small, confined living space with lots of other peoples, what's nice is that, like, you're just focusing on this small area in front of you on the desk, illuminated like floodlights with lamps.
Yeah.
And that whole thing, that vision, that area that you can see is like a whole world to itself that you can just pour your brain into, and it allows you to transport yourself somewhere else, even though that entire universe is just like a 2-foot square space in front of you on a table.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, no, definitely. Worrying about those tiny details or edge highlights or it's just like you forget. Like I would just forget to eat sometimes. I'd be like, oh, I'm shaky now. Oh shit, I gotta actually live and consume. And so.
So what was your first kit? Do you remember?
Oh
if
yeah,
it was a kit.
Oh yeah. It was everyone's. I think a lot of people's first kits. That little 3-man squad of Space Marines.
Yeah.
That comes with a pack of Citadel paints and that crappy little brush. I followed Midwinter Mini's tutorial on it lightly and kind of learned about dry brushing. And I was like, oh, I could just dry brush this whole thing. And that's basically what I did. And I used chunky rattle can paint. And you know how they usually come out. They're rough.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
They're my 3 favorite models on my whole collection. Like if I lost all of them, if I lost all my models, those 3, that's all I would need. Those are the 3.
That's cool. What chapter did you paint them? The Boys in Blue?
The Boys in Blue.
Everyone's first chapter.
Everyone's first. Yeah, I was thinking Blood Angels at the time because actually my favorite color is red.
Yeah.
But I don't know, something about the blue. I don't know, something.
Yeah.
What about
solid color as well? Very solid color to paint.
Yeah. What was your
Good coverage?
Yeah, what was your first favorite your first models you ever painted?
So I go back to 3rd edition. So way back now when I was a little kid, and it will have been some free with the paint set Space Marine Tactical Marines, but it will have been the really old ones that have they have their guns like stuck to their chest. They're
Okay,
like
nice.
two-piece models,
Yeah,
and they've got their legs quite spread quite far apart. They're on
yeah,
slotter bases,
yeah.
and they've got their guns across their chest. That'll be what I first painted, and of course I painted them Ultramarines. And back then the Ultramarines trim was yellow, so it was like not gold.
Oh,
So it
yeah.
was like the blue and yellow Ultramarines on a goblin green base.
That's awesome. See,
That
you,
would have
you were
been it.
saying it seems like my roots go back far. You've actually been in this a lot longer than I have.
Well, I gave up for a while. I did that. I was on like a very stereotypical journey that you'll see or you'll hear all the time on podcasts, where you get into it as a kid and then you put it away for a long while
Oh, yeah.
through your younger adult years or older adolescent years. And then I came back to it during 8th edition when I was like, I still kept up with the lore because the lore is so badass. I love the
It
lore.
is so good.
Yeah, and it's fun, where you were saying it was so deep. I think that's what makes 40k so unique, the lore,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like this 40-year history that's never been rebooted. They've never rebooted it.
Yeah.
It's just layer upon layer upon layer
Yeah.
upon layer, like rings in a ancient tree,
Yeah, yeah.
So and their attitude of it's all true, even especially the contradictory stuff.
Oh, Lord.
So yeah, I got out of it for a while, and then I really wanted to go back in, but it was at like the tail end of 7th edition, and that looked incredibly complicated to me, and I wasn't confident at all, and I didn't know how to go about getting games or actually playing with people. And during that time, I was big into Game of Thrones. That was on TV. And so I knew that you could get, and I love the Imperial Guard as well.
Yeah, oh,
And
yeah.
I know that you could get feudal worlds. And like I loved all of
Oh,
the
yeah.
scenes in Game of Thrones. So I thought all the battle scenes and the scenes in the camps before and after battles. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if those people had laser guns like in 40k? So I bought some. What do you call them? Frostgrave miniatures, like
Nice.
soldiers. And I was going to get las guns out of my old kit and stick them on.
Hell yeah.
But that never happened, unfortunately. I don't know why that never happened. I think it's because 8th edition was announced, and that was going to be a really big reset,
Oh, okay.
much simpler rules.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what I want if I really want to go in and play this? The Imperial Guard army was just going to be like a personal project that I could build to satisfy the itch in me. But I need an army that I can do fast and that doesn't have too many models. So I was like, Necrons, let's do this.
Hell yeah.
And I can just dry brush the hell out of them all. So I got really into the lore of Necrons, and I fell in love with the lore, and I related to them a lot, which might seem weird. But like they were these people, I saw them as like really tragic, and they are these people who like went to go and they were like dying, like just born into these lives of ill health and misery and suffering, and just born riddled with tumors and stuff. And they like went and asked the old ones, dudes, you've got the secret to immortal life. Is there any way we could have a bit of that?
Yeah.
So we don't live in this horrendous suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And the old ones were like, nah, that's ours.
Yeah, sorry.
And so yeah, so the Necrons, I was like, yeah, I'm not surprised the Necrons went like, we've asked you nicely, so this is kind of important, so we're gonna wage war on you now.
Yeah.
Take it. It's a pretty good justification in my head.
Yeah.
And at the time I had just been like, I'd got like, my depression was really bad, and I had some bad run-ins with some medical professionals who were not very professional and didn't seem to know much, and I was like asking for help for all of these different places.
Okay, I see
And
it.
so to me, it was like, I'm really ill, and I'm going to all these people in positions of power, and they're just like knocking me back.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I relate to the Necrons.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I was getting so angry and furious that I was asking for help and no one was giving it to me.
Ugh.
So I was like, oh, I see what you're angry about, Necrons. I didn't make any deals with any corrupt star gods, but I could see where they were coming from.
Maybe it's time to find some star gods.
Maybe it is, yeah. I'm a lot better adjusted now, thank God. That
I was
was
gonna,
many years ago.
yeah, I was gonna say I noticed a huge thing with I guess it's just arts in general. The arts, I think, when people find their art hobby or their niche, or I even
Mm.
anything other than art, golfing or football or sports, how important that is for therapeutic moments like depression and
Yeah.
whatnot. Like around the same time I started painting my models, I actually developed anxiety for the first time. Like I
Oh
was
no.
I was a lucky kid from the moment I was born up until like I want to say 16 or 17, and then suddenly I started getting these anxiety spikes, and like it just culminated when I hit my early 20s, and I was like, "Oh, this
Oh God.
sucks." Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Nah, it's
Yeah.
okay. But that's what I mean is like it's great that we as nerds can
Yeah.
have this outlet and
Mhm.
escapism that's so important and so
Yeah.
healthy.
That speaks to the crossover between people who love Warhammer and people who love heavy metal as well, because heavy metal is extremely cathartic music.
Mm,
It externalizes lots of negativity and
yeah,
aggression. It manifests it outside of your own body, so it kind of like can remove it from your own. It like sucks it
totally.
out like a vacuum cleaner,
Yeah,
and also it's an amazing escape. I remember
yeah.
like growing up listening to BBC Radio 1, and it was all like songs about partying or love or falling out of love or
Yeah.
breaking up
Oh,
or sexy time or whatever or dancing. And then I found out there was this genre of music that sang about wizards and dragons.
hell
I
yeah.
was like, what on earth have I been listening to?
Yeah.
Why have I not been listening to Uriah Heep and Black Sabbath and all that good stuff?
Oh yeah.
And my dad was like, "Oh, well, if you like that kind of music, here's Deep Purple. Here's
Huh.
all the basics." So yeah, and then I like discovered Iron Maiden and stuff.
Hell yeah. Hell
Early
yeah.
Iron Maiden singing about the devil and stuff like that. Um, or great battles like in the Trooper or Run to the Hills, things like that. So yeah, like that's where that crossover is as well. It's another world you can visit instead of being in the like 2 foot by 2 foot desk. Though it's in your earphones. It's inside your head.
Yeah, I was just a quick
Well,
question. How did your parents react to you getting into the metal? It sounds like your dad was pretty supportive of that.
yeah. Well, my dad would ask for like Black Sabbath for birthday presents and
Oh
stuff.
wow.
Um, he's not like he's not your stereotypical metalhead. He's not like he looks like a man who's been a teacher, and because he
Huh.
was a teacher, he's retired now. But
Huh.
yeah, it started off being okay. So it started off being it's just noise was their attitude, because my dad kind of saw what he listened to as hard rock. Even though I would classify that kind of stuff as heavy metal
Mm.
nowadays in hindsight. Um, so it was like that's just kind of like noise. And then I started broadcasting my show. I had a show on local community radio on the FM bandwidth, which was like a rock show rather than heavy metal, because it allowed me to just basically play mostly heavy metal and then throw in some Leonard Skinner now and then when I felt
Okay.
like it,
Okay.
or some Tom Petty or stuff like that. Um, and then that kind of shut down, and he got into it like that. And by being supportive and listening to me, listening to my show, he kind of understood and heard how great Iron Maiden was and how great Accept are. He's a big fan of Accept
That's
now.
cool. That's super
How
cool.
great, he loves the symphonic metal with the female vocalists who are very
Okay.
operatic, as I
Yeah.
do. Um, so yeah, he's got into being a metalhead now, definitely.
That's
He
super cool.
actually was telling me one of my proudest moments was when he said when he just randomly messaged me um, to tell me how cool he thought the latest Body Count album was. And I
Oh
was
wow.
like, that is that's a special moment as a son.
That's
What about
awesome.
yourself? How did your parents react?
Oh Lord. Well, so
Not
mine
great.
was no, not bad. My mom has always been a super supportive lady. I had a stepdad growing up. So he was always kind of involved but not involved. He tried to keep his distance respectfully.
Mhm.
But my
Mhm.
mom was always the person I was trying to impress and or get approval of. And
Sure.
heavy metal came with a side of a girlfriend, my first girlfriend. So it was kind of a combo of what the hell is going on. Like suddenly
Yeah.
my boy has all these hormones, and you know, he's listening to this heavy music, and she thought I was just doing it to piss her off, but I was like, no, I genuinely like enjoy this. Like you said, it
Yeah.
helps you kind of with your anger and whatnot. And I think it was kind of around that time I was like not knowing where to put this energy. And so I'd go into my room when I was upset and just listen to that music. And after like an hour or so, I'd be like, okay, I'm good. I'm good now. Like, I don't have to
Mhm.
direct this towards anyone. And I felt like that was a very healthy way of doing that rather than just, you know, outburst
Yeah.
of rage. Even though I was a teenager and that would still happen from time to time because teenagers.
Yeah.
But, yeah, yeah. So
That's
a
awesome.
mix
Yeah.
mixed bag, I would say. My mom definitely has it.
To be fair, it can be like it can. It's very abrasive music,
It
and
is.
even I, early on when I was a kid, was like, just imitating my parents, going, "Oh, that's just noise."
Yeah, exactly.
Um, Even though I was listening to like Guns N' Roses, which was my first proper rock band, and many people would class them as metal.
Yeah,
Well, it's
that's
hair
true.
metal, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, and even though I was listening to that, I was like, no, it's hard rock, it's not metal because metal isn't good. And then I
exactly.
was like,
Yeah,
okay, metal's pretty good. Now I've
yeah.
heard Iron Maiden. That is defiantly heavy metal.
Oh yeah.
Um, so you got your first kit. You paint your salt. You painted your three Space Marines. Where did you go from there? Did you want to do space? More Space Marines, or did you want to explore the universe a little bit? Because I know you've got. I found you through your Imperial Guard stuff.
Oh, okay. That's cool. That's awesome. Um, yeah, it was just Space Marines because I didn't really know where to go from there. Like, I just
Hmm.
liked the armor, and they were kind of my first look into the grimdark sci-fi.
Mm.
And just the bulky aesthetic of the power armor and the suits and whatnot. And I
Yeah.
think they were just coming out with actually I don't even know. Um I don't know how recent Gravis armor was. Was that
Yeah,
ninth?
that's eighth edition.
That's
Eighth
eighth.
edition.
Okay. Yeah. Because I came in just at the end of eighth and into ninth. So
Right.
yeah, I saw those like aggressor suits and I was just like, those look amazing. Just the big old power fists. Um
Yeah.
but after a while, I kind of got bored of it because I was like, oh yeah, these Space Marines, they're kind of just the special lads of the 40K universe.
Yeah.
And I ran into Gaunt's Ghosts. A buddy bought me a book for the Gaunt's Ghosts Omnibus, and I was like, this is badass. This is fun. This is really
Yeah.
cool. And just hearing the adventures of that crew, it kind of reminded me of like the Expendables in a sense.
Yeah.
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 And so yeah, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna do Imperial Guard. My buddy bought me like a little 12 man kit of the shock troops, and I just
Hmm.
tested the paint scheme. And then he also got me when they were hard to find Death Corps of Krieg,
Yeah.
little kill team box set. And after that, I was like, okay, we're in it. We're gonna be building a horde militarum army, and it was just a slow build from there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So who did you concentrate more on? Was it the Cadians or was it the Death Corps?
It's been a little bit of both because I kind of paint my models with how like I'm listening to lore. Um,
Hmm.
so I would listen to a little bit of Deathcore Krieg and then paint some Deathcore Krieg models and then a little bit of Cadian and back and forth. And also it came down to supplies. So as we know, Deathcore Krieg they've been really hard to find from time to time.
Yeah.
When they
Hmm.
first came out in those kill team kits. And so I was like, all right, we'll paint a bunch of Cadians and then we'd switch over to that. And then a buddy got a 3D printer And I was like, hey, do you mind printing me off a couple batches of some Kriegsmen? And so, yeah, I'd be kind of weaving in and out. So mine is kind of a mixed batch. I want to have a pure Cadian army or a pure Krieg army, but it's just been all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Well, soon you'll have both, I imagine, if you keep expanding both of those things in their own directions.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
So
Oh, go ahead.
you got into ninth edition, which is, in the grand scheme of things, quite recently, because we're only on start of 10th edition
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
It seems like you made the jump to 3D printing much faster than most people make the jump to 3D printing. How did that come about? Like, when did you decide, I got to get me one of those machines?
That one kind of fell into my lap. I'm not gonna lie; these last couple of years kind of felt like it was like a luck roll in D&D. Like I just kind of kept rolling a nat 18 or nat 20 because my father-in-law had this resin printer in the corner of his office since 2017, and he was just not using it. I love the man. My father-in-law, he loves buying the newest stuff whenever he gets into a hobby. But then he kind of gets burnt out and then he doesn't touch it for years. So then eventually it goes to his kids and or his in-laws. And so I mentioned I needed to borrow it for a Slaanesh army. And he kind of understood Warhammer. He's a total nerd. He's into all sorts of stuff. And so he's like, okay. And he saw what I built, 2,000 points worth of Slaanesh. And he's like, that's amazing. He's like, just keep it. He's like,
That's cool.
Yeah, he's like, just keep it. He's like, I never use it. It's been sitting in the corner for 4 years. Just keep it. And so that little Iligo Mars that I recently retired this last video, it was just trying its damnedest towards the end. Like, it's been a workhorse. It's been so good. But yeah, that's the only reason for the jump. Other than that, I think I would have made the jump regardless, just seeing how much I was putting into guard. Guard are so expensive. I was like, this can't be feasible for me with how, like, I moved out once again and I want to start the YouTube channel. I was like, that's going to cost some funds and, like, budgeting and this economy right now. Oh, Lord. But, yeah, so it was just kind of going to happen regardless, I think.
So did you tot up how much you'd spent on guard or how much you wanted to spend and then, realize look at the price of resin and think, man, that is a lot of figures that I could get for that many liters of resin.
Yeah, exactly. And I also consider the fact I'm never going to play in tournaments. I'm just not good under that pressure. Like, I remember I used to play Magic the Gathering and I'd sit there in some local tournaments and I know some people have ticks and whatnot and they would flip through the cards multiple times, like just sit there or tap their fingers while I'm trying to decide. And just that natural pressure of being in that environment and placing and trying to pull off combos, I would just sweat profusely. And I was just like, I can't do this. And so the idea of a even more complex game like Warhammer and then going into a tournament, I'm like, no, this is just not in my future. So I don't mind printing. It's just, there's no reason to not.
So are you more of a narrative type player as well, or purely just a very chill, relaxed player?
I guess it depends on what you would consider narration. Are we talking like Crusade campaigns or?
Yeah, and going for those dramatic moments instead of like what would be perhaps the wise tactical decision.
Oh, totally.
So me and my friend would often like go, right, well, my Space Marine librarian is going to charge your greater demon. And if he takes him down, it's going to be glorious. Whereas I should just be shooting the greater demon with loads of tanks.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's truly how I play too. Like,
nice.
I keep running. Like, I play tested my Chaos Knights recently, and I ran the biggest one up the board, and I was like, why did I do that? But it would do that in lore. Like, it has this big chainsword. It's just gonna go. Like, yeah. So, yeah, definitely more narrative.
I love your Chaos Knights, by the way. I think they're incredible.
Thank you.
Incredible.
Thank you.
Tell me, just before we got off the topic of guard, tell me about the lore of your guard, because that's been a lot of fun for me to listen to. While you're painting it, and you were describing that they've got a big red stripe down the tank, which looked very, very cool. Where did the idea of your own spin on the Guard come from?
So that kind of came with just making them, kind of like it was
Hmm.
like I don't even know where to like put these guys or what the story is that they're doing, and it kind of came from my
Yeah.
paint supplies at the time, and
Hmm.
also like letting it happen organically. So at the time, I don't mind the old school looking camo on the Cadians. I actually really enjoy that. But all I had at the
Yeah.
time was like this dark Warp Storm glow green and this really bright, I can't remember what that one's called, super bright green. And just dry brushing those two in combo, I was like, this could work. And then I used
Yeah.
a red and a brown and mixed those together. I was like, okay, so we got our colors. Um, and I was looking for names on the wiki. I was like, maybe I'll just have them
Hmm.
adopt obscure regimen. And I ran into the bush rats, which are
Yeah.
I think they're the like 60th platoon or something like that. And then I ran
Hmm.
into the 13th regiment, which I cannot remember the name right now, but they're like a Suicide Squad type of regiment. They send in
Right.
prisoners to fight and redeem themselves in war. And
Uh-huh.
I'm angsty. I like the number 13, and I like the name
Yeah.
Bush Rats. And I'm like, we're just gonna make our own, because Bush Rats didn't have a color, a flag, anything. They were just
Yeah.
mentioned once in a book somewhere. And I was like, I want to take this and ride this ship and give them
Hmm.
colors and a look and a logo. And so yeah, just the idea of the bush rats in my whole army is, since we have all these Kriegsmen and these Cadians, it's the idea that they keep recruiting just whoever is available to fight in their wars.
Yeah.
Like, just if your platoon just got destroyed to crap and you're the only one remaining, welcome to the bush rats. Like, you're just part of this ramshackle crew of people that are
Yeah.
joining. So that way I can throw in Cadians
Hmm.
or Catachan or uh what are they freaking called?
Like the
Kazarkin or
Talan or the
yeah,
right. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, just whatever I'm feeling like. It makes it easy
Hmm.
that way. Their basing is the idea that their planet they're fighting on just got turned to ash, basically.
Right.
So, because it's just a black and gray basing, and I thought that
Hmm.
doesn't take away from the color scheme. It looks cool, and it gives this idea that they're
Yeah.
just playing on this ashen world, and so yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It also really works with them being like these kind of down at heel survivors, like the last of their, you were saying like the last of their parent regiments, and it makes a lot of narrative sense that they're like the survivors on this planet that's been near exterminatus,
yeah,
perhaps,
yeah.
and these are the guys that are left over forming up together. That's such a cool idea, man. That
Yeah,
you've tied the basing in with it as well. I love that.
yeah, and I mean rats,
It
bush rats. I mean it makes sense with the
Yeah,
whole theme.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And it allows you to print like because there's some tanks and stuff out there, alternative patterns that you can use as Lehman Russes or
yeah,
basilisks, and it gives you that freedom to have all these different, have that interest, keep interest by not painting three of the same model, but you can have slightly different versions of it, and it ties in with the lore because these guys bought this tank. These guys brought this tank from this particular home
mm-hmm,
world,
mm-hmm.
so they all make sense. They're all kind of different, so it gives you an excuse to play more in the hobby.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lot of fun. That's what I love about this hobby too. Is like take it and make
Hmm.
it your thing. Like it truly is just like
Yeah.
customize it, make it yours, kit bash it, paint it, build it. Like
Hmm.
it's so good.
From now on, do you think it's always going to be homebrew fiction, even if it's just inspired by a name like the Desert Rats? Or do you think one day you might go, I'm going to do that Chaos Space Marine Warband, I'm going to do that chapter, I'm going to do that particular, BL Town or something? Or do you think you'll always want to do homebrew kind of lore for your units?
Um, yeah, no, I actually wanted to dive into uh so the original idea was after the bush rats I was going to go into Slanesh demons and then branch out from
Hmm.
there into Chaos Space Marines and then kind of continue going into Slanesh Chaos Space Marines and
Hmm.
specific war bands. but I got a little sidetracked because I was like, I need to build a knight for my Slanesh army just to soup in and give them a little more oomph. And then I was like, I don't like the look of the regular Chaos Knight. And I kit bashed it. And I'm like, well, shit, now I just got to make a Chaos homebrew Knight army. So, yeah, it's kind of gone off the rails.
And they look extremely cool. Chain veils over their face.
Thank you.
I've never seen anything like it. Where did that idea come from?
That's a good question, man. It was just like kind of a culmination of so many things. I think it really truly came from like Dark Souls 3. I had just finished that like maybe 3 months before maybe even longer ago than that. Maybe I was replaying. I don't even know. But yeah, it was stuck in my brain. And I just remember watching the Boreal Dancer. Have you ever played Dark Souls 3?
I've not played it, but I have watched plenty of footage of it.
Yeah, the Boreal Dancer. Oh my gosh, right? She just like kind of stalks over, but she's wispy and like elegant, and she has a veil over her face, and I guess it just ingrained itself in me because I just looked at this gross fleshy face. I was like, we need a mask, we need a chain veil. I don't know. Yeah, it was really cool.
They look a bit, because quite hunched over, they remind me of like hags, like witches.
Yeah.
Like veils over their face. And because they've got spindly chicken legs and stuff, it reminds me a bit of like Baba Yaga, with the house on the chicken leg.
Oh, I love that.
It has a real like witchy vibe to me as well, because they're muted colors also, like the veils and stuff are like, and it is hidden faces. It really gives me like a witchy kind of like folk horror vibe, to some techno folk horror.
Yeah, very very Admech-esque, with the legs and stuff. Yeah, they're fun.
So do you think you'll continue just printing stuff out now, or will you are there any kits that you'd go, man, I do want a piece of that kit? I miss the old, cutting stuff off with sprue, cleaning up their mold lines and sticking it all together.
I miss it all the time. All the time. Yeah. Not so much the sprue cleaning. I've actually gotten a little spoiled with the resin. I was like, you know what? I can just pull it off and it's ready.
Sure.
But I do miss it. Like, I was given a box by a game store. They were just basically tossing this box of Cadian not shock troopers, heavy weapons squad, because the new kits were coming out, and so they're like, the box is damaged, no one's gonna want this, do you want it? But yeah, like cutting it up, and I was like, oh yeah, I miss this. Like, the only reason is budget right now. I want to paint Mortarion. I don't have a Death Guard army, but that model is amazing. That's such a gorgeous model. I also do want to buy an OG like Chaos Knight kit, just to kind of size comparison to what I'm doing right now, because I think my size is actually off. I went to the game store recently to play, and I was like, those look a lot smaller than I thought they were going to be. So yeah, there's definitely still kits and stuff I want to buy, and even kit bash more genuinely, because I feel like not everyone has access to a 3D printer, and I feel genuinely bad that I'm kind of tossing this opportunity around, and not a lot of people have that. So I kind of want to show, like, here's other things you can do with actual kits and actual scratch bashing that you can build. So it's just a matter of, if I see that model and I have that money at the time, then I'm definitely gonna buy it. But yeah, budgeting.
And there are some incredible 3D STL designers out there, but for me personally, no one touches the designs that Games Workshop do themselves for the actual models that they produce. So I'm often like, wow, that's a really cool thing, but the Games Workshop OG version is sometimes just so superior.
It's true.
To what is available.
It's true.
I need to get the OG Games Workshop version.
Yeah. Well, like you were saying, like Space Marines, like sometimes I'll find like almost one-to-one ripoffs, which I always feel kind of conflicted printing those.
Yeah. I was going to ask you how you feel about this, IP piracy, IP theft, if you want to call it
Yeah.
that, or if you're not interested in, if that's not a problem for you.
Yeah, I've like sat down and thought this through. In fact, it got me so riled up at one point. I felt so guilty bringing my stuff into the hobby store. Like and then I realized I woke up one morning. I was like, these are toys. Why am I freaking out? These are
Yeah.
space toys, like little space marines. But yeah, because I get it from one standpoint. Like if I was working at Games Workshop and I was slaving away as a 3D artist or as a modeler and just spending all my time on this, and then some dude takes it and prints it and rips it off, I'm gonna be like, what the hell, dude? Like, come on. Like that was
Yeah.
labor.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, it's intermingled with a company. So it's like at some point after like what the 10th maybe 50th box they sold, they've probably made back the money for the artist possibly. I don't know how much the artists get paid.
Right.
But at that point, like in the next year, they're going to have thousands of more models sold in that same kit. And so at the
Sure.
same time, it's like from a moral standpoint, artistically, I feel bad. But from like a consumer company point, not too much. Like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. But I always try to support local. Like whenever I'm at a shop and people are like, oh, that kit's amazing. What'd you use? And I say 3D resin. They go, oh, how much do you pay for your resin printer? We get into all that. I always emphasize, if you can buy it, buy the kit. Because these guys try to keep their lights on. Like I genuinely,
Yeah.
whenever I go in there, I buy all my bases, my paints, even terrain that I don't need that I could print. I will buy that because I need that store open. It's a place of like, it's my church. It's my safe space. You know, it's a place where I go to social and meet people. And so I'm not going to just be like, oh yeah, screw Games Workshop and screw these local places. No. It's all intermingling. This is just my opportunity.
And you make such a good point. People are often like, brr, 3D machine go brr, or whatever it is. Even though like 3D printer doesn't go brr, 3D printer goes That's what it should be typing. But you make such a good point that it's not just about like big Games Workshop who are doing enormously well.
Mm-hmm.
It's also like it's about the impact on the people you buy it from, and you buy it. Most people don't buy. Maybe they do. I don't know. That's just me coming up with bollocks now. Sorry, but most people I know don't buy from Games Workshop. They go to the independent retailer because, firstly, financial reasons, consumer reasons. Independent retailer gives you discounts like 15% off, 20% off sometimes. So like, it's better to buy from them. And also like that's that is their lifeblood. They sell models.
Yeah.
When they rent tables out, I'm sure that's nowhere near as profitable as one box of Space Marines or something, compared to someone renting a table out. So if you want those places to play, and here in the UK, in America, there are, there's generally bigger houses, and I think there's my impression that I get, and correct me on this if I'm wrong, but my impression is there is a lot bigger emphasis on playing at home, beer and pretzels type thing, whereas in the UK we have small houses, not much land, so we always go to like gaming clubs, or we always go to the local shop where they've got tables set up. So if you don't have that, then there is nowhere to play your games.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can see that.
Cool if you love the hobby alone, that's great. But like, if you want to go and play the games, which most people, I'm sure a lot of people do, you kind of got to pay for those places to be open as well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I can totally see your perspective. I've ran into a couple of groups that play from home, and they really enjoy that setting. But like this local shop we have here, I would shout out the name, but it would give away my face and location because I go there quite frequently.
Fair enough.
But the community is so tight knit over there. They have several local artists that love building terrain for fun, and they've accumulated so much. They just have started giving it to the shop, and I don't mean
cool.
I don't mean just like little rustic like soda cans. I mean like diorama like looking
Wow.
pieces of terrain. And when I saw that these people
Mhm.
are just doing it for free and giving it to the shop, and the shop is trying to stay open and like provide a
Yeah.
10 tables, I think 10, 12 tables plus a basement level that they're trying to get going. Like, I'm like, okay, well, even
Mhm.
though I'm 3D printing, I need to help this because this is bringing
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
many people together. Like, I cannot just leave this in the dirt and just play in my garage. Like, there's something that's missing from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
The like I quit drinking like quite a long time ago,
nice. Nice.
and I didn't have a, and I loved going to the pub,
Oh, yeah.
and the games club is like the first thing I ever found that was a reasonable replacement for going to the pub.
Yeah.
Like it was a place to go and socialize with
Yeah.
friends. Just I remember going and popping in one day. Just I didn't have any. I was happened to be in town. I popped in just to see who was about, to see if anyone I knew, any familiar faces were there. Have a chat, maybe buy a cola or something. So like, and they're so important for that because like it's the place where drinking is not an expectation. It's not the activity that you do there. So
Yeah.
for people like myself as well, who have had to give up drinking for say health reasons, addiction issues, whatever,
Yeah.
like to have that kind of place where you can go and it's kind of like a pub, but like you don't go there. Drinking's not the thing it revolves
No.
around. There's
No,
no
no, no.
consumption of anything. Like, and that's a place where you can just go and hang out,
Yeah.
like in a pub. Like I can't think of anywhere else similar to that, really.
Yeah.
Like, sure, I go to the cinema, but you sit in silence in the dark for most of that and watch a movie. You're not chatting,
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I suppose the pool hall or whatever, but then again, they're usually in bars and people are usually
Mm-hmm.
drinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only other activities I know that aren't like super like drinking oriented are probably like physical sports. And as a nerd, I'm not
Yeah.
too keen on those ones.
No, I'm the same. I'm the same. Even with heavy metal, you go to a gig,
Yep.
you can't talk during a gig, not properly.
No.
It's deafening.
Yeah, and it's usually at a bar. It's usually at a pub or at
Mm.
a bar, and it's either a local band or a big venue, and people are drinking, and yeah, it's so
Yep.
tied into everything. So yeah, I can definitely see that with Warhammer. Funny enough, you
Mm-hmm.
say that this has been kind of that way to socialize. I ran into another player recently that has stopped drinking, and Warhammer has become his
Mm-hmm.
outlet, where he's like,
Mm.
it's the painting, it's the hanging out, it's all of that, it's the numbers. Like just playing the game itself
Yep.
has been so good for him, and yeah, it's such a good game, so
And
helpful.
it's like alcohol, it's highly addictive as well.
Plastic crack.
Yeah, plastic crack.
Yep.
But with none of the downsides, apart from maybe obviously pollution when you put the screws in the bin. But never mind. It's still a lot better than being terribly drunk or 24/7.
Oh yeah.
So your YouTube channel, you're treating it very well.
Thank you.
You're obviously very dedicated to it. I'm very impressed how it's going. This is. Do you see this being your full-time job then?
That's the hope. That's the hope one day.
That's the dream.
That's the dream. I think probably you as an artist as well understand. These are our goals. Like my dad, who recently came in and saw my office and where my whole camera setup and everything. He really likes my current career, but when he saw me light up, he was like, "Oh, this is it. This is the thing." And
Yeah.
he's such a sweet
Uh-huh.
old guy. He saw like the 700, 600 followers on YouTube, and he's like, "Rick, you're famous." I'm like, "No, no, not yet. No, not even." Like, but he's so supportive, and it is what I want to do. It is what I aim to do, but we'll see. I mean, I am prone to burnout, and that's kind of what also pushed me into this career. Is my current one is I love it. It's amazing. It
Yeah.
has major benefits to it in certain ways, but I'm getting a little burnt out, and it's just time to move on.
Mhm. Mhm. So with running a YouTube channel, what are your plans to grow it if you have any, or do you just play it by ear each day as it comes?
Um, let's see. Plans to grow it. Well, I am trying to go with the flow of what feels natural artistically, because I noticed with my Kill Team video that really launched it off really fast. Like it has more views than anything on my channel right now, and I thought I had to do a part 2, and so I started doing that, and then I was going to do a part 3. And when I pigeonholed myself like that, the creativity just died. I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Right.
And that was like my first project ever. I'm like, oh, if this is how it's going to be, I need to really go with what feels natural. So,
yeah.
But as far as growing the channel, I like to do that podcast, which this will be the podcast for next week.
Awesome.
Yeah, next week or the week prior, but or after. But yeah, I want to try to get the podcast out at least once or twice a month with a regular crafting video. I want to try to get videos out 3 times a month if possible. And eventually get a Patreon once we hit 1,000 subs, which will be awesome. And then all that finance will go into just building the channel even more. And then I have plans for merch. 2 people who are close to my heart are fully fledged amazing artists and are willing to help me create some merchandise, stickers, possible posters, and shirts. And so that'd be amazing. Awesome. Yeah. And then I want to get some dice in there and maybe start a Discord channel, and just all sorts of fun stuff. And I just I might get in the live streaming, but that requires more equipment and setup, and we'll see where that goes. I don't know. Yeah, it's still kind of all in the air.
It's not cheap, and obviously, if there's no return on that, you might feel like you've bought a bunch of dedicated equipment with real no use for it if you decide it's not working out, the streaming. So I can see why it's a risk, that investment.
Yeah, I did a little bit of studying before I got into the whole YouTube thing, and I watched a lot of my favorite YouTubers' old videos, and Miniac, I don't know if you follow him at all. He was when he started, he was doing streaming and video recording. And he was talking about the struggle with that and how he had a streaming setup and then he had a video recording setup and they didn't intermingle, and he wanted to dedicate time to one thing. And so that kind of hit me in the beginning. I was like, okay, I should just choose a single thing and get good at that first and then go from there. So, yeah.
That's exactly the case I was thinking of, because he was like, well, I'm going to just do it. He was like, I'm going to stream almost. I think he streamed every day for a month or something.
Dang.
Along with doing YouTube videos.
Dang.
To see if it would stick. And it just didn't stick. So, that was that. And luckily, thankfully, and probably obviously, he's gone on to massive success anyway, because the stuff he produces is red hot.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, his cinematography. That was like...
Yeah.
That was an inspiration. I'm like, I need to get that equipment. I don't know what he's running, but I need to figure that out. Gosh, he's so good. He's so good.
Send him a message.
Oh God. I'm sure he gets bombarded every day. I don't know if I want to do that, but we'll see.
Like he's a metalhead as well. There's a connection there that you've got.
Yeah, dude. When I saw his outro for the first time, I was like, God damn it! Why didn't I think about that? That's so fucking good. Like that's so brilliant.
Metal scream.
Yeah. Which I almost find is funny because. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say it's got better over time as well. His death metal vocals.
Oh yeah.
So, like going back early, and if you follow it, if you followed him for years, like you can hear he's really getting proper good death metal vocals now at the end.
Yeah. If he said he had a band at some point, I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be like, yes, please send me links. I was gonna say it's funny that the heavy metal theme has been brought up so many times, because I look at my own videos and I keep putting on this vaporwave kind of like lo-fi aesthetic to my videos, when in all reality, all I want to do is play death metal music in the background. Like that's all I really want to play. But I'm like, that doesn't appeal to most everyone, so we're just gonna keep it calm and chill.
Is that why you do it then?
A little bit.
That's the choice behind it, because
a little bit.
It needs to appeal to a wider audience.
Yeah, and also the idea that or not the idea, the fact that the subscription music program I have is kind of limited to what they give me. So
right.
I've thought about, and I haven't asked him just yet, but when he gets his music going, that same friend I mentioned at the beginning seeing if I could have him for an outro or an intro in one of the videos, just to kind of promote him, help give some energy to one of the videos, and kind of culminate it together. So
that would be really cool.
That would.
I was, funnily enough, I was watching. There was this scandal over here revolving a like far right news presenter called Dan Wootton, and I was like following that on YouTube, and there was one YouTuber doing the scandal, a scandal YouTuber, and so he has a strong like a New York accent, and he's not like a macho guy. He's like quite small and like quite rapid speaking. He's not. And anyway, and it wasn't the kind of content for metalheads. But then at the end, I think it might be like just a pal's band or something. But he would like talk about this gossip stuff, and then he'd go, and then he would sign off saying, "I hope you subscribe, but if you don't, I'll be real sad about it. But I'll get over it. Catch you next time." And then it would just go into like this drone metal music, like these like Sun O type, really like long sustained bleak music.
That's awesome.
And then like an album cover of a band, something Jesus something, I don't know. I was like, this is like such a jarring moment to go from this like smiling snarky scandal dude to just drone metal. Which I loved. I was like, that's very cool to have that sudden jarringness. But I can see what you mean, because back in the early days of like hobby YouTube, you would get a lot of people using heavy metal music because that was the music they liked to go with their painting videos. And there was even memes about how like it would have an intro with like face melting riffs and shredding and stuff. And then it would cut to, and today I'm going to tell you how to paint the trousers on this Imperial Guardsman.
Oh, that's
and, like,
hilarious.
It would just be really chill. Yeah, and I kind of like get that, because it is a peaceful kind of medium, even if you love heavy metal. It's a peaceful kind of thing to do. So to have like insane thrash metal over the top might be a bit jarring.
Yeah.
That you're watching.
That's awesome.
Maybe it's the time for that. Maybe it's time to bring back, like, illegally putting Testament on your metalheads amongst us. I don't know.
Maybe. I was watching watching Miscast his last couple uploads, and I was like, I get it now. He's very punk. His whole thing's very punk. It's very on the ground. Grab the camera. Let's start recording. Grab scraps, build it together. I was like, oh shit, how did I not catch on to this? Like the jean jacket he made, and I'm like, this okay, I get it now. Like punk, hell yeah.
He was on. Do you know the Painting Phase channel?
Yeah, I just watched that one too. Yeah.
Yeah, with Miss.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, he kept referring to stuff as how punk something is, and that's very punk and stuff. I was like, oh, yeah, it's very... I was like, yeah, this is very punk. But Metalhead, I'm not able to immediately identify punk, but when he started going on about it, it's like, oh, yeah, it's a very punk ethos.
Yeah.
Creative carnage that he has.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up now. Let's do it now.
Okay.
What can we expect? Any particular projects from the channel in the future?
Oh gosh.
And any dream projects you want to do as well, like a 7-foot Titan. Like
gosh. I'm over the Titans. I'm over it. I want to do a massive terrain build, like just something like it was his name, Zorpazorp, I think is how he does I want to do something like that. But
Middle Earth stuff.
Yeah, in the near future, I think within the next couple months, I want to do a donation video where you guys can expect that. I basically want to print and or build a bunch of terrain and just donate it to several local shops, and I mean a lot of terrain. Because there's some shops out here that don't have good terrain for Star Wars Legion or Kill Team or anything like that. And so I was like, I need to contribute and give back. And so I'm going to be doing that at some point. So that's something to be expected.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Patreon will probably be going up in the next 3-4 months because we're at 700 subscribers. So we'll be getting there soon. And I don't know. I would say those are the top 3. Yeah. Those are the top 3 things to expect. And
Awesome. And you'll continue podcast, of course.
of course, and you're more than welcome to come on anytime.
I would love. Don't offer me that, because I will. I'll take you up on
I
it.
would
That's the
love
threat. That's the problem.
love to have you on.
I'll be on like, can I come and please be on your popular YouTube channel?
Oh,
now?
stop.
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 Thank you very much. That's a very kind offer. Okay, well, it's been an absolute treat talking to you.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed getting to know more about your history, hobby. It's funny because, like, you talk about it with such eloquence, and you refer to it as art when it would be very easy to refer to not as art and to downplay it and say, oh, it's just toy soldiers, which it is, but it is also art. And that's what made me think he must have a way deeper history with it than you act way longer history with this than you actually do. So I think that's amazing that you come across so erudite about the hobby and about what you're doing, and also the skills that, like, I would say that you demonstrate that for me would need to have been picked up over a vastly longer period of time than you actually have had to pick up all those skills that you demonstrate in your videos. I think is incredible. So
Thank
thanks
you.
Thank you. Congratulations on fooling me about the length of the time in the hobby.
No, thank you. Thank you for all the wonderful support and your praise. It's way too much. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad I've embarrassed you now.
First, before we last thing before we bounce, what and where can my audience find you? What do you do? Give your plugs. Put it all in there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Once in a blue moon, I'm going to get back to it soon. You can look for Oldex, which is old codex, where I narrate old Warhammer Codex fiction out of print stuff. Just little snippets of me narrating it. You can find that by going to my link tree of Oldex. So just search for Linktree Oldex.
I'll also put it in I'll put it in the description
Thank
too.
you.
Oh yeah.
You can find me at RJ Bailey on Twitter or X or whatever they call it now, and on Instagram at RJ Bailey. And yeah, look for Oldex on your Spotify, your Google Podcasts, iTunes. It'll be there. And also I have it as YouTube videos as well. It's best consumed in playlists if you're new to it, because they're such small little chunks. It's better to just select one of the playlists I made of, say, Codex Necrons 3rd edition, and just let that play and listen to all the fiction, that good old Hammer fiction.
Oh yeah. And to my audience, you guys really need to check this out, because I listened to it and I was blown away that you do not have more subscribers than me. Like, your setup is great, your voice is amazing, and the acting too. I'm sure you do all the voices yourself. All of it is just so good. It's so good. It's being slept on way too much.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I understand it's a weird format, and because of my day job, which is as a voice actor and audio narrator, I can't. Sometimes I work so much that I can't then do more voice acting and audio production. But I will get back to it very, very soon. Off Codex Eldar 3rd edition, and then probably go into Demon Hunters, Codex D.
Hell yeah.
Demon Hunters or Codex Witch Hunters or something like that. So yeah, very much appreciate the kind words.
Oh yeah. It's good work. It's really solid work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Well, that's been an absolute treat.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. So that's the end of the podcast now, I guess.
I guess so. Well, that is the podcast, guys, and those are another set of models off my shelf of shame, and I just want to say thank you. If you made it to the end, that's awesome. I didn't think anyone would be interested in listening to this hour-long interview. Not that Oldex isn't interesting, that it's just that I don't think I'm that interesting, but I am so grateful to have had him on and for him being willing to chill with me and do this whole thing. Like, it was super fun, and it was one of the biggest things on my bucket list. I always grew up watching like my rock stars or heavy metal people getting interviewed, and as a young little kid I remember being like, oh, I want to do that. I want to be interviewed like my heroes. And yeah, thank you, RJ. You totally got that off my bucket list. Like it's super cool. It means the world. And thank you to everyone who's been chilling and sticking around and listening to the podcast and hanging out on the channel and whatnot. It means so much. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed, please share and like and the whole thing with all your friends and all the stuff. And as always, thank you for supporting me at Boxnaught. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video and or in the next podcast. Bye bye.